I'm honored to be here today to present this exciting conversation with a powerhouse panel of women entrepreneurs. First, I'd like to start with a land acknowledgement. As a member of the York University community, I recognize that many Indigenous nations have long-standing relationships with the territories upon which York University campuses are located that precede the establishment of the university. York University acknowledges its presence on the traditional territory of many Indigenous nations. The area known as Takaronto has been caretaken by the Anishinaabe Nation, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat. It is now home to many First Nation, Inuit, and Métis communities. We acknowledge the current treaty holders, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation. This territory is subject to the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Belt Covenant, an agreement to peaceably share and care for the Great Lakes region. And now I'd like to take the opportunity to tell you a little bit more about ELLA. ELLA is Y-Space's stream of programming for women entrepreneurs. We have the honor of supporting women entrepreneurs throughout their business journeys. And we do this through programs that are free of cost and also, through mentorship, access to a vibrant community of other women entrepreneurs, and through entrepreneurship education. ELLA is run by Y-Space, York University's Innovation Hub, and is made possible through funding from Innovation, Science, and Economic Development Canada, as well as Desjardins. The ELLA team is excited to present today's discussion, Starting Local, Going Global. From grassroots initiatives to global enterprises, our esteemed panelists will offer unique perspectives on navigating the complexities of scaling from a local platform to a global one. Thank you to our esteemed panel of women entrepreneurs who have taken the time to share their valuable insights, experiences, and wisdom. Roxy Earle, Katrina Smart, Andrea Backstrom, and Stephanie Lipp, we are so thrilled to have you here with us today, and we can't wait to be part of this conversation. In this busy world, it is especially meaningful to us that you've chosen to spend your evening with us here today and to support women founders. Thank you to each and every one of you. I hope that you enjoy the experience, and we're so grateful for your presence here tonight. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator, Marilyn Horick, who is the Senior Vice President, Ontario Market, Growth, Acquisitions, and Development at Desjardins Financial Group. As Senior Vice President, Ontario Market with Desjardins Financial Group, Marilyn is responsible for the organization's strategy to drive Canada-wide corporate initiatives, growth, brand visibility, and innovation. Marilyn, thank you so much for joining us. We're so thrilled to have you moderating this discussion.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that, Nicole. Here we are together again. What I love is that the more I show up, the more faces I recognize. It's like coming home. It's a family. This is all good. We're going to be getting into some really great, juicy content. And for everyone here who's looking to, yes, start local, but then ultimately go global, I think you're in for a real treat. It's a real pleasure for me to have this opportunity to represent Desjardins at this wonderful event today. We are absolutely thrilled to be partnering with the Y-Space, ELLA, and York University, and generating opportunities to meet entrepreneurs just like all of you, and inspire all of you to learn from them. We still have the opportunity to discuss the theme, Starting Local, Going Global, with 4 women entrepreneurs from different backgrounds as they share insights from their entrepreneurial journey. And during my time at Desjardins, I've had the great chance to meet and speak with many entrepreneurs in Ontario, but across the country. And through those conversations, what I've really learned, yes, capital is still a big part of the question, but so is being able to create a network, being able to get advice and mentorship and guidance. Because making big moves in either the domestic or the international context can be challenging and stressful. Having a network and people to guide you through that is essential to any entrepreneur. Connecting those aspiring entrepreneurs with the right expertise and other successful startup founders is important to educate them and encourage them on how they can pave their own path. As a country, we need more exceptional entrepreneurs to excel, to grow and be competitive as big businesses. And for that to happen, those companies, for them, they need to go global. The domestic economy for them is not sizable enough, but the global market is, or an expanded market is. Whether that's about accessing the global economy, seeking out talent in other jurisdictions, tapping into ecosystems to derive innovation and new growth directions, ultimately finding new competitive advantages to help them grow, and looking beyond their own backyards is where entrepreneurs are looking for advice and the courage to take that continental leap. We're extremely excited to have Andrea, Katrina, Roxy, and Stephanie here today to offer invaluable insights and inspire all of us. I want to thank you, ELLA team, for your amazing work in helping women entrepreneurs reach new levels, and for the organization of this lovely event, for the feeling of camaraderie that comes with it every time we're here. Now, let me introduce our fantastic panelists. I'm going to start with Andrea Backstrom, second to my left. Thanks. Andrea co-founded AMCC with Melissa Stunden in 2017, leveraging her extensive background in sales and marketing leadership within prominent wine agencies. Their company specializes in Canadian market development for regional and trade associations, including New Zealand Wine and the New York Wine and Grape Foundation. Seated to her right is Katrina Smart, founder of That Good. She is an experienced architect, entrepreneur, and an advocate for women and people of color. She has over 20 years' experience in hospitality and event design, creative brand strategy, and professional service. Coco, as she's known, has developed and launched 6 successful businesses and created a profitable commercial real estate portfolio, some of which she uses to support her charitable initiatives. Those endeavors include the Remix Project, look it up if you don't know about it already, where she resides as board co-chair and is a champion fundraiser for the Parkinson's Society of Canada. She also serves on the advisory board of Citizen Cosmetics. Roxy, at the end, I'm kind of going out of order here, ladies, but that's okay. Born and raised in Toronto, Roxy parlayed her passion for marketing into a stellar career with Ogilvy and American Express. Her dedicated work at these institutions garnered several Canadian marketing awards and a Cannes Lion. She was then cast on the show The Real Housewives of Toronto. This opportunity gave her the stepping stone to build a business with a major shift and new meaning to the plus-size world. Earl is bringing empowerment to women of all shapes and sizes. Roxy is the founder of Style Dial and the Anna app. And seated next to Roxy is Stephanie Lipp. She began her career immersed in art and photography. Her work in fashion portraiture, graphic design, and digital marketing earned her a reputation as a multi-talented creative professional. Stephanie took a detour from the arts to manage nonprofit housing. That's a detour. Gaining a different perspective and honing her leadership skills. However, the pull of creativity and fresh ideas was too strong to resist. It led her and her partner to start a gourmet mushroom farm in rural Newfoundland. This girl knows how to pivot. Recognizing an opportunity for greater impact and spurred by a love of fashion and fungi, Stephanie took a leap and co-founded a materials startup. As CEO of Myco Futures, Stephanie effectively melded her creative background and her entrepreneurial spirit, named a 2023 Game Changer by Natural Products Canada, and invited to speak at events for Elevate Festival, Holt Renfrew, and Mars. Ladies and gentlemen, give it up to your panel. Ladies, thank you so much for being here. We had kind of one and a half conversations, let's say, leading up to today. And I think, it's an absolute pleasure having you here. We spoke about how, there's some diversity among us, and that's brought richness and depth to what you're bringing in your entrepreneurial pursuits. I think it would be great if each of you would take a minute and talk about, before we jump into going global, let's talk a little bit about your origin story. And Katrina, I might start with you, okay? So to all of the people here, share a little bit about your origin story, what your journey has looked like, how that has shaped where you've taken yourself.
Well, speaking of pivots, I started at U of T. My origin story starts at U of T, and to pay to go to school, it was bartending. And that basically, I would never have known that bartending would lead to my career today. So in this age of bartending, I call it the golden age of bartending, when you used to make quite a bit of money behind the bar before bottle service, and when people would buy one drink by one drink. I was put on the less desirable nights, as they would call them, because I'm a person of color, and they would put me on the black nights. And so this is before anybody really talked about it, and I was happy because I love the music and they're my people. So I was thrilled, but I was responsible for bringing people in. And you used to work at a bar, and in order to get a better bar, you had to bring more people in. So I became part promoter of the nightclub. And so from that, I started to throw my own parties in different restaurants. And then from that, I started to do XM, or experiential marketing, for different brands, starting with liquor brands and then moving on to hospitality. And that's how I started. That's my origin story. Now I create events and strategy for global brands all around the world.
I want to keep talking about that, but out of respect, we're going to come back, because I think everyone in the room wants to know things like, do you still have some of those original clientele that have followed you? Like, I can't wait to find out. Yeah, I know. So we're going to have to come back and explore that a little bit more. Andrea, let's move over to you.
For sure, thank you. So I started my career in beverage alcohol about 15 years ago in Vancouver, where I'm from. My mom is here visiting from Vancouver, so she got to come today too. That was very sweet. So I started in sales at a beverage alcohol company. I was a sales rep and a key account manager in Vancouver. It was an amazing experience. I had a boss who really encouraged growth for me, who was really a champion for me. And he said, you should really consider moving to another market, gaining other market experience at a young age. It will be instrumental to your career. I grew up in Vancouver. I had all my friends, my family. I went to university there. It was just home. I had never really considered leaving. But at the time, my roommate was like, I might move in with my boyfriend. I was like, well, I guess I could just move to Toronto. So I'm like, see what happens. And 2 days before my 30th birthday, I moved to Toronto, kind of on a whim. I'm like, well, if I don't like it, I guess I can just move back home. But the move proved to be successful for me. I was promoted 4 months after I moved, and then eventually recruited to be a director-level job at another company, which is where I met my business partner, Melissa. And we served on the leadership team together there. We had a ton of fun, and we found ourselves really just working well together. We bounced ideas off each other well. We worked with customers, suppliers well together. And so we had a similar style and the same sales drive, but we had a really different skill set. My partner is a sommelier by trade. She used to work at Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment, one of the largest businesses in Canada. And she has a really big, large operations and logistics background, so really bringing those strengths. And then I had more of a commercial route to market background. So we kind of had complementary skills, but the same style and work ethic. And we were having sushi for lunch one day, and an opportunity came up via an email, and it was like, New Zealand wine growers are looking for a new company to represent them in the Canadian market. The gentleman who had the contract before had it for like 25 years. So we're like, these things don't come up often. So we were like, well, let's apply. We think we have the right skills together, and let's give it a whirl. So they had 116 applicants across Canada, and I think we made 10 of us were virtually interviewed, and then 4 of us made it to the in-person interview when they flew over from New Zealand. And we had to do a presentation, blah, 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 blah. And then they called us the next day and they said, can you come back? And we were like, okay, good news, I suppose. And they were like, you're our first choice based on your experience, your presentation. We love the combination of skill set, but you're our riskiest choice. You've never run a business. And we have a lot of companies here that have done this before. And we were like, okay, well, we've done some research and we could start a company, quit our jobs and figure it out. And they were like, okay, well, if your references check out, it's yours. So we quit our jobs on Monday and started a company on Tuesday. And it was opened a bank account and just figured it out, right? And we were fortunate to have a lot of people to help us along the way. And we've grown the business. We've worked with different clients. We've worked with European clients, American clients. We figured out what we like to do, what we love to do, who we like to work with, and really just tried to focus on that and have had a lot of fun doing it along the way. So yeah.
Andrea, thank you so much for that. Already we're seeing a couple of individuals, entrepreneurs that you absolutely have to follow if you're not already, because they've got some answers, I'm sure, in the journeys that they've had. Thanks very much. AMCC, A, Andrea, M, Melissa, I'm imagining.
So given that we had to start the company so fast, we didn't have time for like a branding opportunity, right? And so there was also like the incorporation. They were like, you need a company by like next Friday. So we literally just incorporated, like A plus M was like Andrea, Melissa, like consulting and communication. It was really just like, we need a company and we'll figure it out. And then we just shortened it to AMCC, and now we like to call it a marketing and consulting company. But I give you the real background to it.
But I'll tell you, going lowercase, that's it. That was the style that you brought to it. Fantastic. All right, Stephanie, let's move on and hear all about your fun guy experiences.
Yeah. Well, that was very unexpected. I was on a call a couple weeks ago, and the person told me that you won't see how the dots connect until much later. And I mean, there's still lots of dots that I'm waiting to see how that comes out. But looking back, I was really fortunate to go to an arts high school in Mississauga. And so I think I just had a really great time being creative. And it was just really encouraged. Like if you didn't do something like art or dance, like you weren't cool. And so I had a lot of opportunity to do a lot of different things. And I think that's where I got my inability to say no, but also, sing and do sets and stage manage, like just all these things that teach really transferable skills of teamwork and responsibility and showing up and making something, which is really exciting. So that's where it started. And then I wasn't sure what I wanted to exactly. I thought I'd go into advertising or be a rock star, but I took a year off, but I did a co-op, and it was with a commercial photography studio. And so the first studio that the high school had a relationship with couldn't actually accommodate me right when it started. So my aunt, who's in advertising, was going onto a photo shoot. She's like, okay, I'll ask the photography if you can come. And it happened to be Toronto legend Shin Seguino shooting TELUS bunnies for a whole week. So I really got in there to like what a massive commercial setup was like. And I really loved it. So that's what I want to do. I want to take pictures. And I loved fashion. In high school, I was cutting apart thrift store finds and, selling them to my classmates and making earrings out of darkroom filters. So I was really, looking back, loved fashion and loved circularity and reuse. So I guess that's where it came from. But then, pursued fashion, did a bunch of things. I worked on a cruise ship as a photographer. And so I've always been lucky to have been allowed to kind of do whatever and having this, insatiable wanderlust to, travel and do different things. But then fast forward to my co-founder, Leo, and I being a little bit unenamored with the GTA at one point. Working in co-op housing was really challenging and didn't really see a way to fix it, and then he was in a job that he didn't love. So he's originally from Newfoundland, and we found out how much rent was that his family was paying. So I literally Googled moving to Newfoundland thinking someone had written a blog about moving to Newfoundland, and I did not find that, but there was all these articles about this town called Bonavista, which is on a peninsula 3.5 hours north of St. John's in the North Atlantic Ocean. And it was facing a renaissance after the cod moratorium of the 90s shut down rural communities because people moved away. There was no work. But young people and businesses were spreading out. So we're like, oh, it's kind of like pre-gentrification Brooklyn on the edge of the ocean where we could afford a house. So we did it. We bought a house, moved there, and we wanted to contribute to the community. So we thought food security is a big deal on an island in a rural town, and mushrooms, while not a whole diet, you can grow indoor year-round. And our vision was to be the gourmet mushroom farm, the Apple Store of gourmet mushroom farms, and we teach about nutrition and food culture, and so that's what we did. And then the last part of this that leads to today is, so we were doing a subscription service during the pandemic, and we're at a farmer's market, but there was a bag of mushrooms that didn't actually grow the mushrooms. It just kind of took over, and then it was a flop. So Leo was going to spread it on our lawn, and then he went to roll over it with a lawnmower and then broke the lawnmower because it was so strong what had grown, and we had been following all kinds of fungi innovation. And so within 3 months in our spare time, he created our first prototype. I won a pitch competition, and then I had to learn what a startup was, and then that's kind of how this all happened. And I actually used to hate mushrooms, so yeah, you just never know.
And you're continuing to learn and travel, and meeting people globally is a big part of that. I know we're going to get into that. I also think I want to have those photo earrings, if you don't mind. A little bit of my own history would be great. The dark room, that sounds good. Roxy, Style Dial. Anna, talk to us about that and your own origin story.
Okay, so my origin story, I guess, started in my dorm room. I went to school outside of the city, and I was from Toronto, so I started selling jeans and like Parasuco jeans. I don't know what age bracket we have here, but like 7 for All Mankind. You could get them in my dorm. I would like buy them in bulk and like resell them to girls in Waterloo. Wasn't really a fashion town. That's where it started. And then I started throwing parties, just like Coco. Coco and I met. We know each other a long time. And she's a real one. And so we will just fast forward through an entire decade of advertising, marketing, living all over the world, working for big brands. And that was like where I got my training. And so we'll fast forward through all of that. And then, like many stories that make no sense, I met a guy. And this guy convinced me that it would be much easier to be wildly successful if I just supported him being wildly successful instead of being wildly successful in like pursuing all my dreams and ambitions. So, being young and naive, I thought, great, I'm gonna be a housewife. And that didn't work out. I was not a very good housewife. But what it did do is some show came along from Bravo, and they're like, we want to film housewives. And I was like, I'm in. And he's like, absolutely not. I was like, I'm not asking. And I just knew like this, I was like, you know what? Personal life's in an absolute disastrous place. I have no business. I have no money of my own right now because I've spent the last 10 years living around the world and just having the best career. I think I have like nothing in my savings. But you know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna go on TV. And so the show happened, and I went on the show thinking, I'm gonna launch my fashion app, which was, my idea was I wanted to share clothes with girls who were my size, because I had trouble shopping and finding other outfits with girls my size. And what happened when I went on the show is something I could have never expected, is I became a poster child for curvy girls everywhere. And it wasn't just in Canada, it was everywhere. I became this like person who was at the leader of this new movement called body positivity, which definitely wasn't a thing then, and talking about your body and clothes wasn't a thing. And I just ran with it. I ditched the guy along the way, found another great one, but had some shifts in my personal life. But what it did is it launched my ability to be an advocate for women of all sizes. And I was the first person, I convinced a store. I called up every retailer in Canada, starting with Aritzia, who never called me back, and went all the way down the list, and the founder of Le Chateau called me back. And I was like, my name is Roxy. I've got an idea. I want to put all sizes 0 to 22 in one store at one price. He's like, I like you, let's do it. I sold out that collection so quickly that I did 7 more. And then Joe Fresh was watching, and then I did 5 more since with Joe Fresh. And it's just launched this like movement called My Size Rocks with people. And I was like, you know what? If I can sell clothes, I want to now change the influencer world. And I thought to myself, not everyone can sell clothes. And I kind of felt a shift in what was happening in influencer marketing, being an influencer myself. And so I created Style Dial. And Style Dial is a platform that allows creators to charge a subscription, kind of like OnlyFans, but for fashionistas. I don't know how many people know OnlyFans, but if you know it, it's like OnlyFans for stylists. You charge a subscription for your services, and you go on and people subscribe to you, and they watch your fashion content and shop it, and it's got a whole community where we talk about what fits and have fashion emergencies, and it's amazing. And I just launched it only, I think, a month ago. We've got this small community growing. And in addition to that, along the way, I'd met an amazing man who I ended up marrying, who's a fertility doctor. And I loved building apps. He loved building apps. So we also, just like on the side, built a fertility app called Anna that allows you to get pregnant at home, and tapped into this need for at-home fertility care that was low intervention. So not IVF, but not getting pregnant naturally. And that's called Anna, and that has tons of women getting pregnant on it. So yeah, just a small little few businesses, all started with selling jeans and throwing parties.
And having the enthusiasm to match.
And some, relationship drama along the way.
Well, I'm tempted to actually stick with you just for a second as we move into an exploration, let's say, of what going global means. Because I think to each of you, that's going to represent the opportunity that looks and sounds different for each of you. There was a different impetus. There was a gap, something that was missing, or an opportunity that you were really trying to go after. It could have been talent. I mentioned some things in my opening remarks. Could have been exploring an ecosystem where there may be some other innovative solutions that you're just not seeing in Canada amongst your competitors, and that going global is going to sort of satisfy that. Tell us a little bit about what that might have looked like. What does going global mean for you?
Okay, so before you go global, go so local. Like the most local you know how to go. For me, I had this niche where I had tapped into somehow being like the fashion girl for girls who are like a 12, 14, 16, 18. If you were curvaceous, loved fashion, and had liked my style, I became the person you shopped from. My clothes were selling out like crazy, just in specific sizes. And I wasn't thinking about how I can expand my business into the US. I was offered opportunities. I thought instead, I want every girl who's my size to know me so I can sell her an item of my clothing. And I was able to do that. Having a partner like Joe Fresh isn't bad. You're in the grocery store, pick up a swimsuit. And so that was super useful to not think about how I was gonna first expand. First, I was like, let me conquer Canada. And I don't even wanna conquer fashion. I don't wanna take on Aritzia. I want to take on a size 12, 14, 16, also 10-8. I sell 10-8s. Okay, so like 8 to 18, those were my girls. If you were that size, I was your girl, and that's who I went after. And I think that in all the businesses, now that we've launched Style Dialed, my team, some of the girls on my team are right here, and we talk about, we're not trying to reach everyone. We are really not for everybody. We are not going global yet. We're going niche, 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 anywhere in the world. Wherever you are, if you're that size. So I think it's really important to grow and test a community and have proof of concept from a small group, get and understand that group and really understand how to market and sell to them really, really well. And then you can go global. Once you've really understood a small group of people, and the internet, you can find the weirdest groups of people anywhere in the world.
Thank you for that.
If you sell mushroom bags, if you sell clothes that are only to size 12, if you throw really unique experiences, there's groups and little groups all over the internet, and you just have to infiltrate them. And they're everywhere, but they're united by that one common thing. My thing they're united by is no dresses fit us.
The community is hugely important.
It's the community.
And I think focusing and being really niche and dedicated to your community locally
Yeah, so
is
go
huge.
really local before you go global.
Yeah. In your case, though, Andrea, you were approached with, not approached, but you saw an opportunity which was immediately global, of New Zealand wines. And so, what did that going global mean to you, and what was your experience like?
For sure. So I think I kind of would backtrack it a little bit to a bit of my corporate journey that really led me to that going global. There was one job I had when I worked for a large distributor, and it was a national portfolio manager. So I managed wine brands for the Canadian market. I got to travel the world. I would go to visit the wineries I represented, learn their brand story, meet the owners, understand the wine regions, and really learn how to bring their brands to life in Canada. I got to go to South Africa and buy wine at a wine auction and go to a brand conference. Like, it was amazing. I went to trade shows in Italy, France, Germany, and it was amazing for me to build this wine community. It's a small industry. As you travel the world and get to know people, you see the same people at different events and shows, and you realize how small it is. And it was an extraordinary experience. I met amazing people from small family-owned wineries to large global corporations, seeing how people started, seeing how people operated their business, what they valued as important to them. It was amazing, and I got to travel the world on the company dime, so that was also a nice benefit. From there, I really was able to leverage that into mine and Melissa's business because I knew people in the wine industry. I knew wineries from New Zealand. I knew people who worked in the trade. I knew master sommeliers from around the world. And that really made the world feel so much smaller to me, and it allowed us to grow our business to different clients from around the world. And so it's a bit of a different approach to it, but it was really sort of having that global experience that really helped me get where I am today.
And how would you say that translates? What is the going global difference? How do you define that for yourself, Stephanie, when you think of Myco Futures?
I will start off saying that it's been really cool and fun as I've talked to people around the world, because fungi is a really uniting topic. It's really buzzy now, but people have been obsessed with this for a really long time. And I mean, even in Egypt, there's ancient Egypt depictions of mushrooms. So it's been a hot topic for a while. But in going to this, I was like, yeah, I really went all over. But I did start locally. One of the first people I talked to, because when you have a startup, the first thing you do is talk to your customers. And being in responsible consumption and really trying to address climate issues, we wanted to make something that people actually wanted. So it's one thing to have an idea, but you need to build a company with customers. So one of my friends from high school worked at Aldo, so I'm like, okay, that's kind of a big company, but she was the only person I knew that was in the industry, and she spoke to me, and then I started talking to stylists that I knew from back in my photography days, and they knew designers and things like that. But then I really had to reach out because we're a business-to-business supplier of the material, and there really isn't that many small vegan leather brands that were willing to talk to me. So then now we have early adopters in Vienna, in Seoul, in Manila, LA, New York, and going to these international events, I've spoken to people literally all over the world, and it's just their eyes light up when you say mycelium. They're like, that's so cool, and that's been really special to just see this. I guess it's a human mycelial network around the world of people that really believe in this as a solution, and doing all kinds of different things. But it started locally, but just really quickly snowballed because people love this everywhere.
And I think that there's an element of sourcing, the product, the materials, and you're just not finding it here locally, and you had to branch out. That needed to be part of it.
Yeah, manufacturing here isn't really a priority sector, and especially when you add in ag tech and green chemistry and all these other things, I have to say Europe is a little bit more receptive to these things coming together in a business. Not necessarily more risk adverse, but they are very forward looking in terms of sustainability, and there's lots of legislation to support this kind of innovation. And then of course, the leatherworking hub of the world is in Italy, and branching into Spain, Portugal, and that's where some of my advisors have had their careers and have connections. So it's going far and wide to find those connections.
Afterwards, we're going to have to chat, Stephanie. I don't know if you've watched Discovery, which is it's a show about space, and they use mycelium to transport. I know the inner geek in me is showing right now, but if anyone has watched this, I'm going to talk to you later, because my husband and my son were really excited that I was going to be speaking with you tonight. Tell me, Coco. I just called you Coco. Katrina. Look at that. I just immediately was falling into friendship. You give off that vibe. So talk to us a little bit about what does going global mean to you, and what were you seeking? What was the gap, or what was the thing that you were looking to find?
So it was a job. I think in my past life I probably was a novelist and a creative, but having immigrant parents, it was kind of like go to university, get a degree, be a lawyer, and then somehow I became a bartender and threw parties. So very inappropriate. But it was brands that I was working with that needed they're kind of, we call them dusty brands. So they're like storied old brands that have been around for a really long time, but they needed something that would propel them to top of mind again. So we worked with Remy Martin, and we brought back this cocktail that they had in their repertoire, and we made a story around it, and that made the cocktail popular again around the world. And then from that, Four Seasons is actually a hyper-local company founded by Izzy Sharp in Canada, in actually Toronto, on Jarvis Street. We were working with them, and they wanted to make Four Seasons not your grandparents' Four Seasons. They wanted to make it millennial, and they wanted to make it young, and they wanted people to know that it existed, and not to only go to like your grandparents' birthday party or to stay somewhere. They wanted it to be young and fun again. So they tasked us with this, like, how do we make it fresh? And through that, we took, it's not a hyperlocal company at all. It's global, it's all around the world. But we took an idea of a party that we started here called the Four Seasons Pop Down, and we brought that to Hong Kong, London, Miami, Philadelphia, in kind of like a culturally relevant time. So Art Basel in Miami and Hong Kong, and we would pop up the hotel outside of the hotel. So we would create this amazing immersive experience, and with their masters of crafts. So they're Michelin star chefs, we'd fly in from all over the world, and we would have food and cocktails, sensory experiences, and kind of introduce people to a brand that's been around for many, many years, but kind of bring it to life in a different way in different markets. So it was a really great eye-opening experience to be able to, a party's a party is a party, but it's not. So in Hong Kong, they were a very different customer than it would be in Toronto. We had to kind of immerse ourselves in that local way of being and see what would work best with them. We did always have like something very artistic and then something that really lent itself. So in Toronto, people don't necessarily love to line up or queue up for things. In Hong Kong, they're totally used to it. So we were able to use these different things and figure out what worked in different markets. And it was a really interesting experience for us, and we learned so much along the way.
Thank you. A lot of that has to do with being open to learning, always being open to hearing and listening to how something has worked elsewhere. And so I'm segueing, follow me, ladies, because I'm going to go into a question that I think might appeal to people in the room. We're here at a York University. We're here at an event that is at its core based on having connected with entrepreneurs through education and through learning. And whether it's your own post-secondary experience or through, maybe it's not the ABCs that always be closing, but it's the ABLs, like always be learning. And what I take from that, Katrina, is that there's a real element in entrepreneurism of listening and always being open to learning. And so I'll ask each of you to kind of reflect on your post-secondary experience and how that may have shaped your entrepreneurial journey, how those individuals and experiences that you've had have helped you along your way, or if that doesn't resonate with you, just this concept of learning and what you've learned along the way and how that has shaped it. And I'm going to go down to the end, Roxy, because I know that this idea of maybe not necessarily in a post-secondary context, but really being open to listening and learning to others is generic.
Yeah, well, as it pertains to my post-secondary education, I went to Laurier outside of Toronto, and when I got there, it was really small town. And I was like, I'm mixed race, and I got there, and like I dressed like quite cool, if I would say. But I guess it was different than the girls there. They were all in like Abercrombie and Uggs, and it was just, I really stood out, and I wanted to go home so bad. And I was like, Mom, let me switch schools. I want to go somewhere like where my friends are, Western, Toronto. Let me come home. She's like, no, you chose this place. It's got a good business school. You're going there. And so I was like, oh, if I'm going to be here, what can I do here? I needed to entertain myself because I really didn't feel like I fit in there. And so I met up with these guys from Toronto, and we started throwing parties. And what it turned out to be is I spent 4 years with like the most concentrated target market on earth. And if you went to my university, everybody knows me. There was posters with my phone number on everything. My phone number, I'm not joking. Everybody knew me from my university because I would stand on the corner flyering them to parties I was throwing, selling them my jeans, selling whatever I was selling. And I just treated it like this focused target market. And like, you know, nothing humbles you and nothing makes you listen harder than standing on a corner flyering, right, Coco? Yeah. No, I'm not interested. No, I'm not interested. No, I'm not interested. What about this? And what about that? And you really have to listen to feedback. And it was a really good, very humbling experience, but a really good learning for when I went on to launch my own company, because social media is all about listening. You've got this target market out there, and that's where my businesses grew from. And you just have to listen. Don't talk at them. Talk and engage in conversations with your customers. And people say that, but they don't actually do it. Just today, we emailed everyone who's on my app personally from my email. They have my email. You have my phone number. You can call me. Tell me what you think of my company. Tell me what you think of the product, the service. I want feedback. And that's unique and rare. Anyone can reach me via my DMs. I'm very reachable. And I think that is true listening. Like, get in there. When I worked for Le Chateau, well, I didn't work for Le Chateau. When I designed clothes and collections for Le Chateau, they let me go into their store, and I was working at the Eaton Center, essentially. And people would walk in, and they're like, is that you in the store? And oh my gosh, you're from the Housewives. And I was like, yeah, and here's my clothes. And I did it because I wanted to hear what my customers were saying in a change room. And it worked. So never be too big for anything when you're building a company, and get right in there with your customers and listen.
I love that. Thank you for sharing that. I'm envisioning washrooms and any other wall along Laurier with, like, for a good time, call Roxy.
It was 416-769 Roxy. It spells Roxy. 7699 Roxy. Like, everyone had my phone number. It was unbelievable. Like, I'll just tell you one more little thing. Yeah. Before I left, my business had become so big at Laurier that the dean, and I was there to study business, don't mind you. I was there at the business school. The dean said, Roxy, we have to shut down your business. It's become too much competition for the on-site bar, for like our student bar. And I said to him, just so you know, I'm not donating a building. And he's like, what do you mean? I go, one day I'll be able to donate a building. I'm not there yet, but, you know, manifesting. And I said, but I'm not donating a building because you guys don't support entrepreneurs. And he was just like, okay, I can't manage this person anymore.
He wasn't listening.
He wasn't listening.
So whether in the context of post-secondary education, some experience that you might have had, or Andrea, talk to us about some of the lessons and learnings that you've had either in school or elsewhere that you've carried forward.
For sure. So I went to UBC in Vancouver, and I didn't really want to go to university right away. I kind of wanted to travel, but I ended up going right away anyway. And it was an interesting experience. I mean, I had a great experience. I met a lot of people, learned a lot. But for me, it wasn't necessarily about what I studied. I think it was in my first year I decided to study sociology, and then the second paper I submitted, I had a professor tell me, you don't know how to write from a sociological perspective. And I was like, okay, well, I'm in first year, like, can you help me? And she was like, no, you just have to figure it out. So I was like, okay, I guess I will maybe change my major. So I changed my major, and I had to be a bit resilient and adapt, and it was a bit like, should I just quit and go travel? I don't know. I was just kind of over it, but I stuck through it, and I'm glad I did. I had another interesting experience that taught me a lot. I was taking a GIS course, whatever, doesn't matter, but and I was put in a project with two friends, and two of us decided to work really hard and go do the labs and go understand what we had to do to complete our project. And one friend of ours decided that Mike and I were pretty smart, so we could probably figure it out. So he would nap in the history building, and I have to go to math class. We're like, Jay, you never go to math. So I'm disclosing names now. I didn't mean to say the names. You never go to math class. And we actually found him sleeping. It was really hard, right? And so he was a good friend, and we kicked him out of our group when we went to the professor, and we said we no longer want him in our group, and he didn't pass the class, and he didn't graduate from university. And that was his choice to make, but it really taught me that I'm not going to be taken advantage of. I'm not going to do the work for you, and you need to contribute. You can't just be along for the free ride, and it doesn't serve anyone well. So that was a very interesting experience. Lastly, I went on an exchange to Australia when I was in my fourth year, and really pushed me out of my comfort zone. It was hard to be away from friends and family for almost a year, but I stuck it through. I had an amazing time. I met interesting people, and I have to say that for me, university was really about those learned skills. And I look at when I was hiring people and looking at people's resumes and that, and it didn't necessarily care what you majored in or what you studied, but it's more about completing something and starting something and being able to finish it and learning how to think analytically and analyze situations and make informed decisions and not be so rushed to decide to sleep in through a project or whatever, right? So yeah, it was an interesting experience for me. I really enjoyed it, and I do think that it contributed to where I am today, and a lot of those skills that I learned through university really helped me.
Stephanie and Katrina, anything that you want to add from an education or learning? You touched on it a little bit in your previous comment. Stephanie, is there anything that you want to share?
Yeah, in photography school, this might be shocking to some of my co-panelists. I think I went to maybe 3 parties in 2 years because I was working for photography.
You needed Roxy's number.
Coco and I were making money off the parties. That's why we were at the parties.
Yeah, I attended very few because I was working full-time for a couple who were photographers, so I'd go to class in Oakville, living in Mississauga, working in Toronto, and yeah, on the weekends just shooting in whatever space I could find. I had to do a lot of my own styling because no one wanted to work with a college student. I almost sometimes had to do my own like makeup on models, or they did it for themselves. So I learned how to hustle, I learned how to be professional, I learned how to juggle, but it wasn't until this experience, and after that I sold vintage, I did event styling, but it wasn't until I did this that I actually learned what a business plan was, like what business was, because yeah, I've learned a lot, and it really puts you through the ringer to especially in the startup world. I thought startups were The Apprentice UK and Dragon's Den, and I was like, I could never do that. I could never stand in front of people and ask them for money and talk about financials or any of that, and that's what I do on an almost daily basis now. But yeah, that self-teaching was such a huge education. So
I wonder how what you would have benefited from. And I think that kind of leads into this next question. Whether we're talking about women entrepreneurs and not having necessarily the resources, the access to a network, or we're talking about, you mentioned having been, you said, a colored student, and so you were not able to access and get support, and you didn't find individuals who were like you. What would have made that difference, and what would you bring to the equation now if you were meeting with someone?
I think that sounds horrible, what you just said.
Yes, it does.
But I think it's real.
Yeah.
So I think what that taught me in not getting what I wanted, so I was like incredible student in high school. And then I had to have 3 jobs and go to university and throw these parties, and I was not incredible at university because also the teachers wanted me to serve them back exactly their philosophy, and I was like, that's not how it works here. And so it taught me that you're not always going to be perfect. You're not always going to be able to make everybody happy. And I think in the age demo that I am and how I grew up, it was always like perfect presentation, A+, everything's got to be great. And that's great training. But I know a lot of men, and excuse me for saying this to the men in the room, but they don't come with this packaging that it has to be 110% every single time. And we know these statistics that come with this, that men will come to a new job with 70% of the skills and women will come with 110, right? So I think what that taught me is that fail faster, like Facebook, move fast and break things. Don't always have to feel like it has to be finished and perfect and pristine in order to get the job done. And that way you move faster and move forward and you can do more things. And I think it just taught me that progress over perfection. I think that was what it is. And not so much of winning all the awards at university, which I thought really I was going to do that, and I was going to go to Harvard and I was going to be a lawyer, and none of that happened. So that kind of failure early in my career helped me be able to build something, because you have to fail.
That resilience and the effort that you put into your entrepreneurial journey, Stephanie, as a woman of color, if you if you had today in front of you, as we do, women of color, how would you want to approach them and support them? And what would be some of the supports that you would recommend?
Oh, that's a great question. I come at this answering that I live with a lot of privilege for sure, and so I can only have empathy for people that don't walk with the privilege I have, but that you have to acknowledge it's there, but you have to push through it because you need to be the representation for the people that come after you. So each generation gets a little bit easier, and it won't happen unless someone out there sees me, half Filipino, Chinese, and Swedish, and you're from all space, and we're from everywhere.
Half Pakistani.
Exactly, yeah. So I mean, we have the burdens and the beauty of having these really complicated backstories and backgrounds and expectations that come with that, but also the beautiful culture, the points of view, the wonderful food, all of that other stuff. But yeah, when people look at us, we're just different. They don't get us. What are you? Are you this? Are you that? But in the end, to get feedback at the events that I go to and say that I've inspired someone, I'm inspired by everyone here. I think it's just really powerful to pave the way for everyone else. And we don't always see the people that came before us. There wasn't social media. There wasn't all this stuff to remind us. So it's. I just yesterday answered a question to you. You have to keep going. Nothing lasts. So the hard times will come. And keep going.
Yeah. Open it up to anyone because I think it's an important question.
I think that just being different is your superpower. Everyone here is a little bit different, and I mean that in a really beautiful way. And that difference is what makes us stand out. What makes people remember us. It's what brings different ideas and points of view, and it also makes you think about the world in a little bit of a different way, where you're able to see an opportunity that is unique to you and your point of view and perspective, which probably other people share, but maybe haven't voiced or maybe haven't realized. And so I would say lean into being different. If being different it's where it's at right now.
Andrew, anything to comment there? Or maybe in the context of going global, how is diversity, how is being a woman easier, different in a global context? What have you experienced?
I think that it's interesting when I look back at when I started in the beverage alcohol industry, the company I worked for, everyone in a senior leadership role was a white man, right? And the industry lacked a lot of diversity and a lot of female leadership, and I think I came at a time where maybe people saw that needed to change, and I was fortunate to go to a Women in Leadership conference and attend different things to help support the growth of women, and it just was so off-putting. I saw this one story about this senior manager. He was an older white male, and I got that promotion to the portfolio manager job, and he says to me, Andrea, I would have normally never given this job to a woman, but you know what? You deal with a lot of European personalities, but you got balls, so I gave you the job. I was just so wildly inappropriate, right? And I just look back on that now, and I look at all the women I've seen grow in the industry, and I did that job, and I think I did a pretty good job at it. And it's changed, and I see the change in the industry, and I now mentor through this program, VinEquity, that is actually helping BIPOC individuals get their way into the beverage alcohol community. We're seeing a lot of diversity. We're seeing women of color in senior manager roles and owning companies, and it's really inspiring. And I think that, it's nice to be a part of that change and that support, but it's important. Everyone has to play a role, and everyone has to do that. And it's good to see the companies doing it, right? It's also just as the flip side, and I think you can all probably relate to, there's also the performative side of it, right? Where it's I'm sitting in a boardroom, I sit on the board of directors for this association, and I'm supporting VinEquity, where I volunteer and I mentor, and it's 3 women of color who run the company. And then these 2 white people at the table are we want to start our own company to drive diversity. And I'm so you want to take away from VinEquity? I don't follow, right? But I challenged them, and they were well, when are we going to stop, supporting this, or how long are we going to do this for? I'm until there's more people of color and women sitting at this table, right? It's just, it's getting better, but it's not there, right? So I'm just happy to continue driving the conversation and supporting people where I can.
Thank you. I think we're going to move a little bit into the Q&A, but I'm going to ask one last question just because it's my prerogative, but also because I've been dying to kind of go here, and I want to make sure that we do capture as much of the going global, topic as possible. So let's talk about wins. Let's talk about, whether it's aggressively being local and in your community, whether it's sourcing the right materials and the manufacturers that are global, already having an extensive connection in with, a global market, but needing to learn from it, or having 6 companies and knowing which, not knowing which way to start. But, why don't we start with you then, Katrina, from a going global perspective, what's a win that really jumps out for you?
Well, I have a unique perspective on the global part, not just the Four Seasons piece, but and Roxy knows this, but one of the people that I used to sneak into my bar has turned out to be a big musician globally. So
She's friends with Drake.
it's been a really interesting thing, and that I never thought. Like we always knew that he was the chosen one, but to see it on this level, right? To see it. So I've worked with corporate and these massive multi-billion-dollar companies, but to see your friend like in Madison Square Garden performing in front of thousands of people, it's a really weird, amazing thing. And what I take from that, and I'm going to tie this into my business, is that one, you never know who people are, what they are, what their potential is when you meet them. So my thing was always treat everybody the same who came to my bar. That was my lesson. I don't care if you have $2 or $1 million, treat everybody the same, because you could judge people from what you think they look like. I mean, I could have judged him for not having ID to go into the club, and I didn't, And what ends up happening is that your kindness to people can be your calling card for the rest of your life. So to have that opportunity that, we not separated, we weren't not like that, but he went off to do his thing, and I built my business. But now I'm able to throw his events in all different cities, and it's like, but I took the training that I've had from Four Seasons, One Hotel, and Remy Martin, all these big companies, and I learned my grit and how to throw these events. But it's this beautiful, amazing thing to be like, hey, buddy, do you want to party after your concert? Because I can do that, and I can get it paid for by a liquor brand, and I can do all those things. So again, it just comes back to like kindness, lack of judgment, and really, really good work ethic. Because he does employ like 50 people of his friends, and they could all throw those parties, but I throw them, right? So, yeah.
That's an excellent answer. There are some Desjardins people in the room today, and we're a 55,000 person organization. But one of our tenets is, and we're a financial cooperative, so one of our tenets is being human. So I think that answer really resonates with those of us who are here. Thank you for that. Andrea, as you reflect on that same question, give us your thoughts on.
For sure. So I guess I would relate it to a situation where Melissa and I were applying for a contract within the European market, and we hadn't done something there, but we had experience with the region and that, and just really leaning on different people within our community, right? Women are so, I don't know if it's ingrained or to just do everything ourselves and not ask for help, right? And so I think I really struggle with inefficiency, and I really hate inefficiency, right? So for me, I'm always willing to just pick up the phone and call people and ask for that help, right? So, whether I'm just frustrated and I need to vent and I call my husband or my best friend, or, I think about if I just can't figure something out, or how do I, approach this contract into a new market, right? And I have industry experts that I know, people, colleagues, coworkers that I've worked with, and really leaning on those people has been instrumental. And I hate to sit there and struggle, but why should I, right? There's so many people out there in the community that I've built that offer different strengths than I have, and really relying on them to help me get what I need and be as efficient as possible, because I hate wasting time.
Very efficient answer. Thank you.
I don't want to waste everyone's time.
But thank you. You know, we're establishing those relationships and being able to rely on those, and they know that they can trust you. That's massive. It's a great answer. How about yourself, Stephanie? Thinking about wins, and you know, you are traveling so much. Where are you going tomorrow? Is it Helsinki?
Helsinki,
Yeah.
yes.
So you're killing us. But you know, you're finding your way in your entrepreneurial venture through connections that are global. What's a win that jumps to mind for you?
Yeah, so I'll pull this out. I encourage everyone to come feel this after, but this is my prototype, and it's my bag made completely out of mushroom leather. But this was, feeling is believing is our unofficial slogan, but this was made by a woman named Sabrina, who's one of our customers, who's based in Vienna, and she found me on the internet, which is always shocking that anyone knows I exist. I just forget that I'm searchable. But so we talked for a long time on the internet, and last year I was there, and she knew I was coming, but we hadn't made a plan yet to meet, but I was at a weekend brewery craft thing, and I was like, Sabrina, it's me, I'm here. And she's like, so very soon after I got her samples, and she made this as a prototype for a piece that was in the Museum of Science and Technology in Vienna, and to have something that I had any type of connection with to be in a museum in Vienna, which is like the city of museums, for science and technology was nothing that I ever thought would happen, and we just got amazing feedback, and we did a press call with the governor of Lower Austria, and I was in a newspaper, and my family in Lower Austria were like reading it and just came across me and were like freaking out, and it was just like such a weird, wonderful thing, but just came from sharing the passion for fungi and animal-free materials, that I have this beautiful thing to put around. And
you are beautifully humble, I have to say. We are all eyeing that particular purse. So don't let it out of your sight, I would say. But, sign me up, because I don't know if they're like available, but hook me up for like half a dozen. That would be great.
Someone did ask me yesterday how to get them, but my answer is I have to do
The answer is not yet.
Not
It's
yet.
coming,
Yeah,
or that
no.
you want to wait list.
Well, yeah, no, the wait list
For a good
is
time,
open.
call Roxy.
I just need an investor, so that's what the thing is. So if I'm
It's
gonna
all about a
fund
wait
that,
list.
Yeah, it's all the wait list, and just need to get started in our lab at U of T. So
Yeah, incredible,
there, almost
incredible tease. Okay, Stephanie, thank you for that, and love the purse. There's an obvious one that's probably in everyone's mind about an amazing win or an incredible thing that happened. What is it for you?
Oh gosh, I
Your
think
effervescent life.
I think that the first time I'll relate it back to my apps. So in our fertility app, the first time someone reached out and said, because of our app, she followed what we told her to do, she followed the program, and she got pregnant. And a baby arrived. She sent a picture of the baby. That was like, oh my goodness, something my husband and I dreamed up and architected ourselves, and medical diagnostics that he did while I was pregnant, and we just were holed up in COVID with our whiteboard in our living room, turned into a baby. That's cool. So that was a cool one. And then with our company, Style Dial, it's a really small community right now. We haven't let many people in. They're on the wait list. Because I believe in growing small and understanding a small group. But a woman reached out and sent us a photo and was like, I've never felt so good at this event. And you just think to yourself, the things we're doing actually matter. And so it's not these huge wins. I mean, I did close a big financing round today, so that's a win.
Congratulations.
And I've self-funded my own companies up until now. And another amazing female founder, one of my best friends, Joanna Griffiths, is now my investor, because we invest in companies together. And she's like, I want to invest in you this time. And I was like, what? And so that was a big deal. So that's a win. And now our company, in terms of going global, we've just moved my Style Dial app, and I and my family and our company is now moving to California. And so we are doing that because I just some sort of self-torture want to start my life all over again in terms of building another business. I feel like I have Toronto and Canada a good grasp on it. And I was like, I need to go where creators are and fashion girls are. So I'm going to go to the land where I can't even get a hair appointment, and I'm going to sit at Soho House and build this company. And I think the reason I'm telling you that is that never be too, people look at me and they're like, oh, you're this and that and successful in that. And I was like, never be too successful to sit down in a coffee shop and start finding new customers and start over and build in a new country and build when you need to level up. And so that's where tech companies are built. That's where I have a network of tech. And so off to LA I go to build Style Dial.
So many wins there.
Yeah,
Congratulations
so a few.
on all fronts. I don't know that there's any topping actual life, that you were able to point to in the birth of
That's
a
a
baby.
big one.
That's sort of a big one. So congratulations on the Anna app for that. I'm going to turn to all of you now. I can do a speed round if you think you need time to come up with some really amazing questions. But I'm
sure
going to
there's
look for,
some
no, you see there are some hands that are already popping up. Thanks. We'll share. Okay, sounds good. All right, so we'll look out to the audience then. Right there.
Hi, great job, guys. Really, you're amazing. I'm an entrepreneur, but also an angel investor, and I curate hundreds of deals every month, right? And one of the weakest points I found with female venture looking for capital is very low knowledge of financial literacy, right? And so I spend a lot of time coaching, even though it's not my favorite subject, but has to be dealt with. So it's a bit of a taboo topic. And in my 30 years of career, I learned that to go global, you need to be financially literate. There is no other way around, right? So I was curious to know, how did you face that? Because at one point in your career, you were growing, became big, and then you faced new markets. So did you just outsource all that knowledge and sort of say to your husband or accountant, okay, you take care of this side, that's not what I like the branding side, right? Or did you make the time to really understand how to run the numbers, how to look at revenue, how to look at spreadsheets and do forecasts for investors and, and start really looking at the business and run it? Thank you.
Coco, go first.
So it's kind of twofold. I think I asked for the help from my ex-husband and my accountant, but I wanted to learn. So instead of being like, you take that, so like, okay, explain how that works. So I started investing in real estate when I was 21, and it was from the proceeds of bartending again, and but was taught how to save that money. But in order for me to be able to teach other women how to do it, I had to know myself. And it's not something that was easy for me to learn, even though I fancy myself as pretty intelligent. Women do not talk to other women about finances enough at all. We don't go to the bar and say, what stocks are you trading? And how much is what's your finance rate on your mortgage? Like, we don't talk about it. So I think what's important, it's so important what you're saying. And I think we're also shy away from saying it very plainly. And it has to happen very plainly. We have to talk about how much we're making. We have to talk about, like, what raise did you ask for? Did you go into your bank and did you say, I want a higher rate, I want more money on my credit card? Do you ask to change your mortgage rate? There's all these things that we do not talk about, and we really need to start talking about it. So I've started to do these financial literacy events because I don't know everything either. And so I'm learning at the same time too. I don't know anything. I know about investing in real estate, but that's about where it ends. And then I know how to run my company fiscally responsibly. So I know when I'm talking to my accountant what he's doing, because I'm terrified my accountant would steal money from me. Like, that's like, someone's going to steal from me, so I need to be like, wait, what was that? But I think it's super important for us to all talk about it and be, even though it's, even with my daughter, I've put her in like advanced math tutoring, because there's this not natural, but there's this thing that happens with young girls, and it's like, if you're not good at it, then you shy away from it, and we don't speak the language often. We're kind of forced into this language around how we look and what we're wearing and what our hair is like, and we don't talk really about math and number, and when we feel embarrassed about something, we avoid it. And so I'm like, you're never going to be embarrassed about not knowing math, because if you're not literate in this piece, you're not going to be able to manage your own finances. And I just think it's like, please keep asking this question, because I can imagine it being very frustrating for you too, because now you're like, okay, now let me mentor you through this process. But it's all of our responsibilities to talk about it all the time and to ask those really uncomfortable questions, like how much did you make last year? Or what are you doing with your taxes? Because taxes are really high. So how are we helping each other figure out these kind of things? But it's a very important question, and I challenge everybody here to talk to your friends more about money. And it doesn't need to always feel tacky. It doesn't need to feel like, oh, she's obsessed with money. No, I'm obsessed with not being broke when I'm going to retire and not have any place to go, right? So,
Amen.
passionate about that.
I don't know if there is a additional comment to that, because I think that really summed
that summed it up perfectly.
Summed it up. And I have to say, just from the perspective of the financial institution in the room, first of all, if anyone is looking for support, feel free to look us up.
Never stop selling. Never stop selling. Join the wait list for Desjardins.
I will say, though, yes, women are less likely to feel comfortable about this topic, and we have to just get over it. That is easier said than done. Now, you speak to any young person, though, and you're going to find that they are intimidated by this. More so young girls than guys. However, as they age, we have many individuals who are nearing retirement, men and women, who aren't sure that they've got it all figured out. They're not sure that the nest egg's where it needs to be. They're not sure that after having spent maybe 30 years as an entrepreneur, that they have a business transfer plan. And we have these conversations all the time. We're going to Collision in, a month or however long it is. I don't know, a couple weeks now. And that whole day, for 3 days, we're going to have people coming up to us and saying, help us out, men and women. So we do have to get over it. We have to help the next generation out 100%. I have more business cards, but that's not the point. Be mentors, because we all have to play that role. We all have to help that next cohort along, and the person might actually be the same age as you. The person might be older than you. Don't think that age is actually a benefit in this equation. We have an aging demographic, yes, but as entrepreneurs in Canada, in the next 10 years, 75% of business owners are saying they're going to exit, but they don't necessarily have a strategy for what that looks like. First of all, that's a scary number, and that's why we need all of these rock star entrepreneurs and all of you in the room to actually excel and do really well. But we also need, for those who are planning to exit, to know who they're going to hand it over to, because Canada won't survive. We can't keep calling it like the backbone of the economy if that SME space is not supported. And so please, check in with the people that you know. Make sure that they do have a plan, and talk to someone to get the answers and to feel really comfortable with those questions, as anxiety-ridden as it might be. All right, there was another question over here.
So unfortunately, we have time for one last question. I'm so sorry. I'm just mindful of time, so it's going to come right here.
We're good.
Hello, my name is Sabine McDonald, and I'm helping businesses to grow internationally and eventually as well globally. And by myself, I have also lived in 8 different countries and grow businesses there, and I know how hard it is, and I know how challenging it can be. And you talked it very easily, and I'm pretty sure you also had your challenges. And I would like to know, what were your challenges to go globally, and how did you overcome it?
Stephanie?
To the ones who've overcome. I mean, this is the bold assumption in her statement is that I've overcome the challenges of going global. So, thanks for the vote of confidence. I don't have. I can't speak from the other side yet. I can only speak from where I'm at, which feels like, I feel like I went out for coffee with Coco like a month ago and just like poured my heart about this exact thing. I'm like, you're never gonna feel like you've overcome the challenges. And she's like looking at me probably thinking, what are you talking about? Things are going very well. But in your brain as an entrepreneur, you're thinking 10 steps ahead. And I'm thinking, how am I gonna grow my company in the US? How am I going to reach these markets? How am I gonna overcome these challenges? And so I don't have some brilliant answer. I think like the actual truth of entrepreneurship is you just go into the trenches and it's like holding the line. People are shooting at you and you're just trying to hold the line. And the longer you can hold the line, eventually you kind of are still standing. And then you have a company and people are like, wow, you're so successful. And you're like, I've just been holding the line. And like anyone who says it's not like that, they're lying. So I don't know about overcoming. I can't speak to this room and truthfully about how I've overcome. I'm in the trenches building companies and I'm trying to build them and I'm just trying to stay positive, stay excited, inspire my team, realize the dream, and you just keep going. And then maybe in a few years from now, we'll come back here and you'll ask me how I overcome, and I'm sure I will have the next thing I'm complaining about trying to overcome. So I'm so glad I took the time to answer the last question with nothing helpful, but.
I did have a last thought. I thought of something as you asked the question there. Melissa and I, we broke into the European market and we got a European contract for Canada, and it was a big win for us, right? And we had beat a large global company to get this, just, Melissa and I, which was a really big win. And they were so mad that we won the contract. As a side note, a female said, I didn't know those girls could do European contracts. I was like, I'm a 42-year-old mom. Like, when did I become a girl at any point in this conversation? But anyway, and we had to pitch for the business again, because with the EU, you have to pitch every year for some contracts, right? And we like long-term relationships where we collaborate with the liquor boards, we build a long-term strategy, right? And that large global company came in and they pitched again, and they completely offered a ton for way less money, and we lost it after a year, after 10 months, really. And it was such a kick in the face, because I was like, wow. But we stood our ground. We were like, you know what? We don't want to do it for less. We're not here to work for less than what we're worth, and forget it. If that's not how you want to work, then that's not how we want to operate. And so to overcome that, we sat down, we thought, okay, what are we going to do next? Because we like traveling to Europe, so we want a European client. And we invested in ourselves, and we went to Wine Paris, and we met with a ton of different regions, and we were like, let's meet with people and see who we like, because at the end of the day, we want to work with people that we like, who trust us, and it's a mutual relationship, and we can build a long-term relationship. I don't want to work with someone who's going to just go for the lowest bid in the next year, because what a waste of my time for those 10 months. Other than the trip to Portugal, but you know what I mean? It was really hard, but that was how we overcame that. So we haven't got a new one yet, but we have a few irons in the fire, and that's how we decided. We're not gonna settle for anything less, and we'll work with people that we like.
Much better
Great
answer.
learning, great. Andrea, man, you are like no holds barred. Like, you kicked the guy out of the group in university, and you've been taking names ever since. I love that story. So anyone else? Because it was a great question, right? It's a great question about challenges that we've experienced, whether regulatory, I mean, all kinds of different things. Anything else you want to contribute?
Everything.
I'm in the still in it camp.
Yeah, okay.
Hard in it.
I think a lot of challenges with taxes, visas, operating in different countries and being able to operate, flying under the radar. There's so much red tape, speaking different languages, not understanding just, I want this to be this, different time zones, everything. I think the one thing that I learned just in common, and I often say this, is as much as someone is a very good actor, no one really knows what they're doing, and they're all really just trying to figure it out. And so if you ever feel like and I feel like people talk about imposter syndrome all the time, and I feel it all the time, but if you know that, like, Stan in Germany will try to steal your idea, repackage it, and serve it back to you because Stan thinks that he is smarter than you, then you just might as well be as tough as Stan and take ownership of your ideas and know that nobody really knows what they're doing.
That's at every level of an entrepreneurship. Like, some of my friends who run huge, one of my guy friends runs one of the, I won't say what company, an absolutely gigantic tech company. And he's like, Roxy, I have no idea how I built it. And it's a multi-billion-dollar company. And he's like, I have no idea what happened the last 10 years. And I think like that is kind of entrepreneurship. You go with something and it's just this conviction and just stick with the conviction and you figure things out along the way. And somehow at the end you get spit out and you're like, I guess I'm an expert. That's what they don't teach you at school. Sorry, York University.
That's awesome. I know we had a question over here, and I'm willing to take that. Sure.
My question was really about if you could share some insight on how you develop and foster relationships outside of Canada and how ultimately you convert those into clients.
Where do we want to start? I'm feeling like, Andrea, you might be in a good position to answer that one.
Sure. I mean, I guess I think I was fortunate, right? Because I had a corporate job that allowed me the opportunity to actually travel the world and build that community. So I don't know that my experience is really as relevant because I was given the opportunity in the corporate world before I started the company. But
I would say probably because we're similar, like Four Seasons brought me to that, but to get other clients is that when I'm in market, so if you do have the ability, it's like these kind of things, like when you're networking, that networking is such a anxiety-inducing thing for me personally. I'm like sweating knowing we're going to talk after. But what I want you to know is that most people feel that way. Introvert, extrovert, it's tough to talk to strangers. Post-COVID, even tougher. And that I think you just have to be willing to know and recognize that people are uncomfortable and that if you're in any opportunity, everybody is an opportunity. So just try to talk to people, have your best case. I'm also terrible at like a elevator pitch or any of those things that are conventional to winning business, but I'm really good at like listening to what you're saying. And so whatever your strength is, use that when you're communicating and or meeting people and see everybody as that kind of opportunity for something. I mean, that's a kind of esoteric answer to like, how do you get business outside of Canada? But building relationships and putting yourself out there more often than you ever want to. You never know where your next gig is going to come from. And every gig that you have is advertising for your next. Mm-hmm. And I'm big, I think a lot of people that I talk to, women and men across the board, it blows my mind and it will blow Roxy's mind out the water that they're still terrified by social media, which is the strongest advertising thing you could ever do. So if you, and it's like a test case every day. You can be testing something else. And everybody thinks like that one post is going to ruin their life or their aunt in Nova Scotia is never going to speak to them again because they posted that. But it's like use your social media, use your access to the world and keep throwing things against the wall and something will stick.
Yeah. And I would say in that vein of social media, show up. It's an amazing way to meet people where you don't have to leave your house. Like slide into DMs, ask my team. I have a list of girls I DM every day and they're like, they'll be a huge star and most of them don't write back. And that's fine. You're okay being the girl who DM'd you. And then show up for people. Like I repost people's stuff that I think's cool. Like go to their events. Like if they're doing something, I like comment about it or reshare. Like Coco's worn my Le Chateau clothes when no one wore Le Chateau clothes but me and Coco because I asked her to wear them. And then I've been to Coco's events and we're just hoping one of us becomes Drake. You know what I mean? So like you show up for people, and those are relationships. And then one day Coco might be in New York and meet somebody and be like, you'd be dope if you meet Roxy. And I'll be like, oh, you should meet my friend Coco, and I'm in LA, and like my company is just bursting out there. Like things. And so, but I would say, don't leave your house, get on social media. Get on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is like the most undiscovered gold mine. If you, people really use LinkedIn, and not in a pitchy way, just connect.
That part. So that's another thing. Don't just be like, hey, can I request your friendship? Can you be like putting out articles of interest? They don't
I've
need to
never
be long.
asked to use Champagne Poppy for anything.
No, she hasn't. But put out articles of interest that are interesting to you, and you can become a thought leader so quickly on LinkedIn. And that's something that you can do from the comfort of your home by sharing information. Like that, we live in the information consumption world right now. So being able to share that as you make yourself a thought leader, and really the virality on LinkedIn is incredible.
LinkedIn's like an untapped resource for meeting people all over the world who are in your interest group in your sector.
I would agree with that. And just put it out there. I network like crazy, and you never know who will know someone else. And, my advisors say you got to focus, just talk to, the people will get you something. But at the same time, all my best experiences have been the most random connection or someone who reminded me. So, last summer I had the opportunity to go speak with Kering at their head office in Paris, and I still can't believe that. But it was just because someone knew someone else, and I was, sitting in there pitching, showing them my leather. So, and that was because the internet just makes the world so small. But yeah, just find your people online and just put it out to whoever. And again, as we, I think, all underscore, being kind and being someone that people want to remember fondly, I think goes a long way.
Do it for the love of the craft, not because you're trying to pitch them something.
I think those are some really good pieces of advice. It started with community. We talked about building a sense of trust as well, leaning on that network, even if you've never met them and it might be completely random, but they're actually part of that same community. And if you have established that responsiveness and that trust, it will pay out dividends.
And
Financial
do
joke,
things for good people.
not intended. Give me that again.
Do things for good people without
Yes.
wanting something back.
Yes.
And that actually is just the best.
I think it's also important, I totally agree, LinkedIn and all the social media and that, but I'm the type of person that I'll talk to anybody. I'll talk to anyone in the elevator. But did you see where I got it from? My mom was chatting your ear off.
It's true.
He hates talking to people.
Oh, see, I don't know. I just love talking to people. My husband is always like, "You talk to everyone." I'm like, "Well, why not? If I'm just standing here, I might as well talk to people."
But she's always on stage talking.
But one instance that was interesting in terms of the going global, this sparked a memory hearing all these women talk. I was walking out of a trade show in Montreal, and we stopped because we had to carry a couple boxes, and this guy was tying his shoes, and I just started talking to him. And he was also going to Wine Paris in a few weeks, the trade show that I mentioned we were going to, and he introduced us to 3 potential clients just because I talked to him while he tied his shoes. So the importance of talking to people.
Listen, Katrina, Andrea, Stephanie, and Roxy, thank you so much. This has been a fantastic panel. I've learned so much. I've enjoyed it. Wish we could do it all over again. I guess I'm going to turn things over to you, Nicole.